So, Alicia, if you maybe want to just give a brief rundown of who you are, your role, and sort of just a bit of an introduction.
Sure, not a problem. So welcome everyone again. Alicia Sheen from Newcastle Council. I'm their Waste Education Officer, and part of my role is educating the community about what happens to our waste and recycling. So today we're going to go for a bit of a brief overview of what happens once the garbage or the recycling truck picks up your garbage or recycling bin, and what are the can and I suppose can't do things that that we often, those frequently asked questions we often get peppered about on either the phones or via email from our residents. And likewise, if there are any questions out there, it's a very casual conversation, so please just jump in and we'll try and answer those questions as we go along. So to start off with, I just sort of asked those who are tuned in now what local government area they're located in. We have some people who sort of go across from Lake Macquarie to Newcastle. So majority of what I'll be speaking about today is what happens at Newcastle Council, but there are lots of similarities. We're trying to streamline across the council borders. So if someone does move to a different local government area, it's a lot easier for them to pick up and continue on with their recycling. All right, Beth just let us know that she's from Lake Macquarie too, so thanks, Beth. Great. All right, so in Newcastle, we have around 65,000 residential properties. So that includes things like units, what we call MUDs or multi-unit dwellings, single unit dwellings, and we collect bins or services from those properties every day of the week. So we have a fleet of around 25 vehicles, the drivers who manage those. The routes often start from about 5:30 in the morning, trying to miss those busy traffic peak times, and go through to anything sort of from 2 or 3 in the afternoon, again, trying to stay out of the school traffic and bits and pieces. So we do ask that if you are using our services, you place your bins out on the curb before 5:30 and make sure they're clear of any trucks or other vehicles. It just makes it easier for our loaders, obviously not to hit any other vehicles, but to make that as seamless collection as possible. So in Newcastle, you have 3 bins. You have your yellow recycling bin, your red general waste bin, and your green waste bin or garden organics. I know Lake Macquarie Council has a food component of their green bin. We're actually moving towards that in the next 2 to 3 years. We'll actually have a facility opening up at Summer Hill where you will then start to place your food waste in your green garden organics bin as well too, which is pretty exciting. But today I think we're going to look at a little bit more about our recycling, which is our yellow lidded bin. So our recycling gets picked up fortnightly, and the contents of those bins is taken to Summer Hill, where we collect it all in one place. And IQ Renew are our contractor at the moment who sort out our recycling. So the recycling gets taken to Summersby, so sort of down near Rimba, down near you guys down there, and it gets sorted into certain categories. So from there, it'll be paper and cardboard, steel and aluminium cans will get pulled out, as well as glass and plastic bottles. So as a general rule of thumb, when we're recycling, we try and keep items separate when they go in the recycling bin, depending on what material they're made out of. So for example, if you have a jam jar with a metal lid, we ask you to take the metal lid off. It can still be recycled, but that means that when the magnet goes over the pile, it doesn't collect the glass as well as the metal. Things like windows in envelopes, the plastic windows in envelopes and the plastic at the top of tissue boxes can remain the items. We don't actually ask people to pull them out. Our sorting and our cleaning process actually does that for you. So we're trying to make it as simple as possible. We know everyone's got busy day lives. They've got lists, the mental load, as you guys are probably knowing, realising at the moment, is huge. So we're trying to make it as simple as possible to make sure we collect and recycle as many items as we can. Another interesting thing that we tell people about is how to make sure that your items are clean. So people will often go, oh, do I need to have something rinsed out? Do I need to have it spotless? We just let them know that as long as the item is dry, so it doesn't contain any food scraps or any liquid, that's fine to go in your recycling bin. When you get to the recycling centre, you turn up and it smells a lot like off milk. So you realise that a lot of your neighbours aren't rinsing out their containers as well. So that's just part of the process that we've got built to wash and I suppose clean up those recyclables before we send them off for more processing. On that, Athea's joined as well. We've got another. Are there any questions around the recycling process that I just sort of rattled off? I understand.
Sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably a lot of information overload, but our recycling facility is sorted by hand and also machine, so it's important that you don't put sharp objects in there or things that don't belong. Unfortunately, the guys and girls on the sorting line often pick up things like syringes, nappies, off food, clothing, all those sorts of things. Not only are a health hazard, but they also have the potential to break the machinery, which can be quite difficult to fix. So obviously there's downtime and the recycling facility can't operate as effectively if those items are going through. So it's there's lots and lots of information online about our recycling process, but if anyone wants to have a look at the specific recycling facility, IQ Renew, just jump online. They've got lots of videos on their website which will show you step by step around the process of sorting and things like that.
Is there a way we could maybe access the link to that?
Sure. Yeah, I can send that across.
Yep, excellent.
Yeah, no problem.
You mentioned that like some of the sorting gets done by hand and some gets done by machinery. Since obviously COVID and lockdown, has that sort of changed how much goes through machinery and how much is done by hand?
No, the system is pretty standard across the industry, so I don't think there's been any major changes since that. You will notice that the people who are sorting have lots and lots of PPE because of the type of materials that they could potentially be handling. People might put incorrect things like asbestos in as well as sharps, so they've really got to have pierce resistant gloves. They've got really thick aprons, glasses, ear protection, and obviously now they'll have to be wearing masks and things like that. But it's a very risk adverse environment, so the guys are making sure that what they're collecting or picking up is the right thing. So you will see if your bin gets presented and it has the incorrect items in it, or if the bin lid is open at the top, our drivers actually have the ability to go and get out of the vehicles, sticker those bins, and let the resident know what was wrong with the bin and why it wasn't collected. So it's then up to the resident to clean up what was wrong and let us know so we can come around for another collection. But it's quite interesting. People have an overflow of recyclables sometimes and it goes into the garbage bin, but I just wanted to let people know that they can get an upsize of their recycling bin too. If you find that you've got a household with lots of people, a bigger family, you can actually get a larger recycling bin for a one-off fee of $25. That's it for life, so there's no annual fee. That just covers the delivery and administration, and it's yours. So you can fit more recyclables in each fortnight as opposed to letting them drain into the garbage where obviously they're not going to get reused. Yeah. I noticed there was a question there that came up at the bottom. What was that one? Can you see that? I think it was.
Tina mentioned she's been doing the tissue box one for a few months now. I'm thinking it would be easier, but I didn't even know that myself, like with the envelope and the plastic on the tissue box. And Beth mentioned, I think in Japan, the customers do more separation, but we don't do that in Oz.
No. Back in 2012, I was lucky enough to be chosen by Rotary to go overseas on a group exchange program, and I got to go to Denmark and Lithuania and have a look at their waste systems. And one of the major, I suppose, highlights was looking at their sorting system, which falls a lot upon the consumer. They were just amazed that we actually have a service that comes to the door once a week and picks up the waste in a nice tidy unit. It's often their responsibility to take it to these small locations or hubs and drop off and sort their own waste. So I think that's probably a little bit similar to what Japan has as well.
So I guess if I might just pop in a question to yourself there, Alicia. So when the recycling trucks come out weekly or fortnightly, where does the items go? Like, where's the first point of contact for that?
Okay, so it'll go to Summerhill for Newcastle. It goes to Summerhill. Don't be turned off. The name is actually a waste management facility, but it handles recyclables as well as waste, so it's not throwing it away. So we stockpile the items there. They get transported by another vehicle down to Summersby to the IQ Renew facility. So that's a separate contractor. So we don't have as a council. Some councils have their own recycling facility, but we don't, not yet. And they sort through our recyclables there. So some of the products then get baled, and some of the product gets sent overseas. Other it gets sent to other states or even in New South Wales for recycling. Things like glass doesn't have such, which is a shame, such a high return rate, but products like aluminium, depends obviously on the market, but it's got a great recoverable rate. So they try and extract as much aluminium as possible out of our recyclables. There was a noticeable turn down in our beverage containers when the container deposit scheme came in, which created a couple of tricky situations for us in the contractors, but in essence, it was trying to clean up the litter on our roadways, and it has. It's the statistics that are coming back through are saying that this program is working, that we're actually having less beverage containers presented on our curbs, our streets as litter because of this container deposit scheme. So thumbs up for the EPA for that program. Yeah. And I wonder if anyone else has actually made use of it over the last, I suppose, 2 years since it's been initiated. Do you collect some yourself there?
Myself? No. I've got a family member who at any occasion, if they see a bottle, they're like, yep, I'll take that. That's 10 cents.
10 cents
I forget. And then it's like, I may only have 2 or 3. I'm like, I won't bother.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you do it yourself?
Yes. Yeah, we have a bit of a collection happening here. My son loves to put it in, but he unfortunately presses the return button for almost every single item. So we get these 20 cent, 50 cent receipts instead of, a couple of dollars. But no, it's it's a bit of an outing for him, and he does enjoy collecting his cans and bottles.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Tia said.
Do you think consumers should take more responsibility than they currently do with their waste management? Oh, yes. Thanks, Tia. Completely. Us as a council, we're sort of at the end of the pipeline, so we're dealing with these products that people no longer want, but we're not the ones who are purchasing them or manufacturing them in the first place. So it's very hard for us to often try and find solutions for people and products that they sort of depend on council to find solutions for. So, for example, if you buy a new microwave or a new fridge or freezer, often they have buyback programs, which is great. Some of the manufacturers, but other, so if it's been 10 years or so older, it's often left for council to pick up at the curb, and we have to degas those products before we can recycle them. So there's a lot of steps involved in collecting items that don't meet the manufacturer's return policy. So yes, in response to your answer there, yes, I would love to see a lot of people taking more responsibility for the items that they buy. And Beth's saying, at work we have people who volunteer to collect for this reason. So that must be the container deposit scheme, yes. And all the supermarket packaging, even for fruit, is excessive. Yes, unfortunately, there was recently I remember reading a paper about organic produce, because they want to keep it separate from the run-of-the-mill produce. It's often just excessively wrapped in packaging. So you'll find that the organic produce has, a cardboard tray and then paper around it. So that's something that I know a lot of environmental advocates have been fighting for, is trying to find different ways of keeping those products separate, obviously for the payback for the producer, but to keep the packaging quite low. And Thea's asked, do you communicate with businesses who produce materials as to make products more easily recyclable? Council does have an advocacy role, but we rely on the local government association. It can sort of pool, I suppose, all the council's resources a little bit better and have a little bit more strength behind it. But yes, we do try and talk to people. Recently, I was talking to my colleague about the new Caesar stone bench tops, which are obviously all the rage. People are getting them into their properties. But we've got to think 10 years, 20 years time, when these products are no longer, viable, or, they're broken, who's going to be responsible for them and what's the recycling process? We're going to have to get involved with this. So yes, we do think about that a lot. And Beth asked, those little stickers seem bad. Not sure what stickers you're talking about there, Beth.
I think when you came back to the organic, on the fruit.
On the fruit, yes. Mm-hmm. They're the little stickers that say that you're buying a Batlow apple or something like that. Yeah.
Can those be recycled at all?
There's a company called Tetracycle, Oh, sorry, not TetraCycle, TerraCycle. I can give you the link as well. Now, they recycle a plethora of items that we can't accept in our curbside bin. Things like toothbrushes, makeup products. I know wetsuits was a recent one that they've popped up online. So, yeah, they're a really innovative company. I think they're based in the US, but they have a huge following here in Australia. So TerraCycle, TerraCycle. And I know that they used to be collecting things like the fruit tags and bags, but for some reason I have a feeling they do the fruit stickers as well. So jump online and have a look there. And even if you might be able to search, I think you can search by your postcode, and it gives you a list of options of where you can drop those sorts of things off. So things like coffee pods, Nescafe, drop-off points, all those sorts of things. The TerraCycle website has lots of information for those unusual items.
I didn't even think about my pods because I normally have like a couple of pods a day. I just pop it in the normal
garbage bin,
like the waste bin. Yeah, but if there's an option to
recycle them,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure many households do as well.
So I suppose the story of the red bin, that leads us nice segue into it. The contents of the red bin goes to Summerhill, which is our waste management facility, and it's been operating for over 22, 23 years now. The site itself is licensed for another 15 years and has potential for another 50 to 100 years of capacity, but not at our current rates. So we're filling it up quite quickly. One of the recent cell developments, cell 11 was the cell that we've recently developed. I think it cost us over $11 million just to produce this hole in the ground to place our waste in, not to mention all the day-to-day activities to manage that site. So it's quite an expensive venture. So trying to keep as much waste out of that space as possible and freeing it up for future generations is obviously our number one sort of priority or drive as waste education officers, is to make sure that we have enough space for the future generations. So the Summerhill Waste Management Facility, as I said, it has some potential for future, but we definitely don't want to fill it up too quickly. So keeping things that we can recycle, like your coffee pods, out of it would be ideal.
Yeah.
And just only saving it for those very necessary things.
Yeah.
So I know even overseas, some of the countries are actually going back and mining through their landfills to extract things like copper, lead, gold, other valuable materials that were once thought as a waste and thrown away, but now seen as a valuable commodity. So whether that happens at our site in the future, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, it's a large operation, and it's people who drive up to the landfill often think, wow, it's quite expensive, and it is. The EPA place a levy, which is around half of that price on us per kilo of waste, and up to, I think last year we paid up to $25 million back to the EPA in a waste levy. So that's a lot of money. And the EPA's thinking is if they create a financial trigger for people who turn up or want to get dispose of waste, that people will actually start thinking of alternate ways to dispose of their waste, which is a great idea. People start recycling, but it also is a double-edged sword. So if it's going to be expensive, people are going to turn away at the gates and they're going to go and dump it on somebody else's property, dump it out in the bush or a road or reserve. And unfortunately, there's council has to go and fund that and collection and organise that collection. So we don't get a special handshake when we go over the weighbridge. We have to pay the same as everybody else, including that levy. So it ends up being quite an expensive venture for us if people are doing a lot of illegal dumping because of those prices. So Beth asked, are there hints for what we could recycle in our own homes? Great. So to get it right on bin night, we sort of try and get people to focus on the various rooms within the house. So we know that a lot of people recycle the containers in their kitchen. Some look into the laundry, but we're asking people to think wider than that. So think about your dog food containers that might be out in the back of the shed. You might also have some shampoo, conditioner bottles in your bathroom. If there's anything from your lounge room potentially, if you've got any magazines sitting around, those sorts of things you could potentially put in your recycling bin as opposed to putting in your red garbage bin. So we're speaking a little bit about the yellow recycling bin, but there are options for things to be recycled that don't necessarily end up in our yellow recycling bin. So if I'm thinking about the lounge room, I'll think about my remote control. If my remote control is broken or the batteries have gone in it, the batteries actually can be dropped off at most major supermarkets like Aldi and Big W, and I think Woolworths have collection stations now for batteries, and also our libraries as well. But unfortunately, just with the current lockdown, they're not available. But the remote control or any other electronic waste in the house, so if we're thinking something that's got a cord, whether it's an iron or a microwave, you can drop those off at Summerhill recycling facility for free. Oh, you have a battery bin in your office. Great.
And I think Tia mentioned Officeworks also does a lot of tech recycling.
Yes, they do. Yes. Great. Yeah, so batteries, but obviously if you're thinking about, you're throwing batteries away, stop and take a step back and think, if I'm throwing these batteries away, what's the next step to be environmentally friendly? Would be to get rechargeable batteries. A little bit more expensive, but obviously you're not going to be throwing away that product. You get 20, 50 uses out of the item as opposed to that single one-off disposal. So yes, if people can, take a stop and think about why you're throwing it away and what it is, you might be able to find some alternatives out there. There's lots of information now that we've got some great links on our website, and also on websites like Recycling Near You, which is run across the nation as well.
I have a question.
Yes.
Just concerning the amount of waste sorting that we have. We have red bin and green and yellow bin. Are there plans to diversify those bins? Because having to drop soft plastics off at the supermarket is kind of annoying, but soft plastics is becoming such a large part of the bin. Are there, plans to bring out other bins or collection processes?
Mm-hmm. I know the Central Coast are trialling a new soft plastic process where they're getting people to bag their soft plastics and put them in their recycling. It's just a matter, I suppose, of the technology down the end at the recycling centre, whether they can actually process and pull those bags out. So initially they're saying that soft plastics in the recycling just floating around will be a contaminant, get stuck in some of the machinery, which I've seen. But if it's bagged separately on the Central Coast, they're accepting it as a trial down there. So collecting and storing some lightweight materials such as like your plastics, unless you have a baler on site where you can actually compact the material, it gets quite cumbersome, similar to polystyrene. So the larger facilities, I know Summerhill, we have a collection point there, but I can see what you mean by obviously collecting, and I've got a bag myself sitting out in the back of my car where I need to drop it off to the shopping centre. It does get quite cumbersome, but at the moment the industry hasn't caught up or hasn't found a viable recycling option for those things. So we're just sort of sticking with, at least we have some options at our shopping centre, but I know they're not ideal for everybody.
Yeah, because I have the environmental incentive to do so myself, but I'm just thinking about the broader community and people wanting to go out of their way. It's like, how can you make it easier for everybody to participate?
That's right. So whether it's something like a on the curb collection, like I know a lot of the charities are doing with clothing drops and things like that, dropping a bag off in the mailbox and letting people sort of fill it up that way. Again, it's just a matter of, I suppose, organising a service and then who then pays for that service. Is it a user pays? I'm not sure whether the product again has a market or a demand. So often we're sort of we're hamstrung or tied by that too, unless it's got a financial value. No one is all that keen to unfortunately go and pick it up, even though it might be the right thing to do. Yes, that's right. I've just seen Nessa's commented that plastic is turned into furniture. Yes, so we've done a couple of trials with some local schools where they've had that product be turned into some local chairs, which is great. And I know a lot of the plastic bags that we collect at the shops, because they're all multicoloured, they tend to be turned into sort of a grey or black plastic, and that plastic itself is used to make some of our garbage bins.
That's fantastic. To see it's not going to waste. I guess like with lockdown, a lot of people are cleaning up trying to minimize things in the house.
Mhm.
Often the bins are becoming a lot fuller than they would otherwise have been.
Yes.
Is there anything that you might be able to suggest can be done to kind of manage that?
Other than sort of stockpiling your waste from one week to the other. Look, you might be able to, I know everyone in my streets become quite friendly over the last 2 years, whether you can ask your neighbour if you can use their bins. Obviously ask before you do it. Some people are very, very protective about their garbage bins. I know we're doing a lot of online purchasing and there's a lot of packaging that comes with that, which is unfortunate. But if you can still get to the shops and you are buying, try and purchase product that you know is recyclable. We go back to that fruit example where obviously the organic fruit's wrapped up in plastic and cardboard. The cardboard can be recycled, but the plastic you need to keep separate. So perhaps rather than, purchasing that item, you choose another item that has less packaging. So yes, that's it. And I know that lots of the major supermarkets have got biodegradable bags for their fruit and veggies now. Those bags shouldn't be placed in with your soft plastics either. They're often made of a different material and contaminated. So then again, there's another level of confusion over, what we're doing is environmentally correct or not. Yes. So, and one of my big bugbears is when I go to the shops and I see people putting bananas or, things like pumpkins or avocados in plastic bags. We don't need to. It's just something that's going to transport it for 5-10 minutes till we get home. There's lots of other options out there. There's Upcycle Newcastle and Boomerang Bags are a local community group who do sewing workshops for people. So they actually use old curtains and sew them together to make produce bags and use T-shirts for the drawstring. So everything's just reused material. So that's another nice little idea. You might want to get on the sewing spree if you've got a spare bit of time for some Christmas presents out there. And I've said Tia's got a comment about, I've read that biodegradable plastic just breaks down into microplastics faster and doesn't do much positive. Is that true? Yes, it does break down. And look, the only option we have at the moment is to landfill our biodegradable plastics. So it's not even getting back into the recycling chain, which some of our other more formidable plastics are. So it's definitely not the option that we're looking at the moment. Jessica says she's been making her own masks.
Oh, that's
wonderful, out of recycled material, old PJs and pillowcases. Yes, brilliant. I'm an avid op shopper, so I often find lots of material and things. So I have a little bit of a stash going as well, which my husband's got some very interesting coloured masks that he gets to wear to work. Some with robots and all sorts of bits and pieces. Bit of a talking point, I suppose. Beth just said here, plastic shopping bags for deliveries at the moment. Any suggestions? Yes. Yes, for rolling my eyes, sorry, at the plastic bags. But as for the just suggestions, there's not a lot. Unfortunately, the major supermarkets are risk adverse with COVID, which I can completely understand. And they're obviously not accepting any of our reusable bags. So I'm not sure whether they have the click and collect option for the cardboard or paper bags. Some of them do. But yes, that is another difficult trend that we're going to have to try and get out of. We just got through introducing reusable bags at all our shops, and we've just taken this massive step back, obviously, with what's happening now. So the struggle is real.
Definitely. There's a local fruit and veggie shop that just sort of coming to mind about reducing the amount of bags that you get to take home. They obviously would get their produce through in various size boxes. Mm-hmm. And what they actually do, instead of giving somebody a bag to take home, they actually pack their fruit and veggies or items they've purchased in those boxes and give it for them to take home.
Great.
Which I thought was really, really good. And it's varying sizes, and it kind of reduces their waste as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because often they'd have a huge skip out the back, which would be chock-a-block full of all those cardboard boxes and things like that. I'd then have to pay for someone to come and take it away. So it seems like a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Has anyone ever tried taking their own containers to the deli? I often do that when you go to Woolworths and Coles. If you want to get some feta cheese or perhaps some bacon, you take your own containers and they should weigh them for you and tear it off, and then place your product in the top there, so you're stopping getting those plastic bags returning home too.
I had no idea you could do that.
Yeah, not quite sure what's happening now with COVID. I have a local butcher who's very happy to do that for me. But yeah, with Coles and Woolworths, I used to take my little Tupperware containers in and save one less plastic bag. And it's also another good opportunity to talk to people, because you often get people going, oh, I didn't know you could do that again. And yeah, spreading the word.
Yep, absolutely. Yes, with the wine boxes.
Yes, packing in there. I'll tell you, you're a little bit nervous about taking your containers in, are you? Beth's asking about coffee cups. What's the future? There's a couple of programs around. I'm not sure if you've heard of green caffeine. It's happening on the Central Coast and a lot of councils around the Hunter, where you, in essence, hire a mug, and that coffee cup then gets returned to one of the coffee cafes that are participating, and you get another mug which is clean. So and your coffee obviously returned in that clean mug. So that's a program, Green Caffeine. 12 months ago we ran a free it was a Newcastle cup, and it was a I'm just trying to think, it was actually a bamboo cup program that we ran, and that was very successful. But I'm just saying, oh, that sounds good, coffee cups of the future. But yeah, look, it's a tricky one. We're not accepting the lids or the paper packaging or the cup itself in our recyclables. The lid itself, even though it might have that recycling, what we think of as the recycling triangle, the Mobius loop, it's actually a plastic coating number, which tells us what type of plastic it is. So if the item has that that triangle on it, it may not tell us if it's recyclable or not. It's actually just telling us what type of plastic it is. So number 6 is actually polystyrene, which usually tends to be the lid on those coffee cups. So that's not recyclable. So even though it has that triangle, which is a little bit tricky, so we're just trying to get that message out there to try and learn what items are out there, what materials are recyclable. Jump on our website and there's a good listing there. Yes. Got another question? Nope.
I invested in a Frank Green cup about a year and a half ago.
Yes.
And that cost me an arm and a leg up front. Ness always says to me, "You're $100 coffee cup," but
yes,
it hasn't saved
$72 coffee cup. Ness says.
Here we go, 70. It started at 50 something. Now it's up to 72. I actually found, because I got my cousin's one as well. I haven't used it all the time, but at least on the times that I have taken it, like our local cafe will pop my coffee. There's just one less cup to have to take out.
Yep. My husband swears by his Yeti, and it's my birthday in 2 days' time, and I'm pretty sure I'm getting one.
Yeah.
I've seen a package floating around here that looks very much like a Yeti cup.
So it's my gift. A happy birthday for 2 days' time as well.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So yes, I suppose that brings us a nice segue into gifts and Christmas time coming up. We're looking at running some workshops, some reuse and repair workshops next year, and there's a website from a local producer called High Tea at Mrs. Wu. They're located on Derby Street, Newcastle, and they have, now I won't pronounce it, but it's a Japanese way of mending things using gold. So they use gold thread to sort of mend some of their clothes and any pottery, things like that. My girlfriend recently repaired a broken vase that she had using this technique, and it's wonderful. So if anyone's interested in that, they also have that unique way of using materials, so often scarves that you can get at op shop, as a wrapping option. So it's like an origami sort of wrapping process. So there's those sorts of crafty ideas out there. Trying to buy local is obviously number one. Experiences are also a good option for people who you don't want to just buy stuff for, or perhaps even donating to a local charity. There's some great ones around, like Oz Harvest, if anyone's ever heard of them. I'm not sure if the uni's partnered with them recently. They take food from events and functions that otherwise would be thrown away and donate it to charitable groups around the Hunter end. They've got Sydney-based sites there as well. So from my end, when I'm catering for something, I try and cater not too much. They give you an idea of sort of the quantity, so 1.5 sandwiches per person. But if there's anything left, this organisation takes it for free. Thea asked, what was the Derby Street place called? It's called High Tea with Mrs. Wu. It's I think a team of sisters who do lots of. I think their main business is sewing garments and apparel. So Mrs. Wu, W-O-O. So High Tea with Mrs. Wu. And if you have a look on their website, they have a link to this process.
Awesome. Yeah, we've got Oz Harvest, prior to obviously the current lockdown, had donated food every Thursday, which we created then Free Food Friday for students. So they would bring produce in, and then UNSA would put together food parcels for students, and it's become so popular that students had even started lining up 45 minutes earlier than our commencement time. Wow. And I'm so astounded by some of the produce. Like, for me, that's what I would buy, the type of quality, not everything, but the quality of ingredients that would otherwise just have gone to waste, to be able to, put it in somebody's food parcel for the week makes such a big difference.
The food waste, I've just been doing some reading, and they were talking about some sandwich manufacturers and things like that who do those bulk sandwiches that you might find at service stations and things. They actually take the crust and the second piece of bread out of the loaf because they think that it's not as fresh as the rest of it. So, they're wasting usually 4 pieces of this loaf of bread. Because they think that's what the consumer wants.
Yeah. At our barbecues as well that we were running, I always used to keep the crust sort of aside, and then sort of getting to the end of the barbecue and the sandwiches would run low, I'd say to students, do you mind having the crust? They're like, it's still bread, it's fine.
No thanks. Yep, add a bit of sauce to it and that'll be fine, thanks.
Exactly. And I think we just assume that people just don't want it. It's just a matter of saying, would you mind having a bit of the crust?
Some prefer it. Yeah, that's right. Yep. Yeah, it's not seen as as a waste. Yeah, great here. Yes. You don't need our crust pieces. Yep. Turn them into breadcrumbs or croutons, or, if you like making soups and things like that, pop them in the oven. Off you go. Yeah. So there's a New South Wales government website called Love Food Hate Waste, which has got some great reuse recipes on there. So for things like that, heightened ones in there. Keep the old bananas in the freezer and use them for, milkshakes or banana bread, all those sorts of things, rather than throwing them away.
Yeah. Those types of things are cool.
Yeah, and buying in bulk, obviously. I've got a young family, so, if the kids like some jats or biscuits, you don't buy single packets of things. They're much more expensive, so you tend to buy the larger ones and break them into reusable containers. A lot of the local schools are doing lots of programs for reducing lunch waste, programs called things like Nude Food, where the kids are bringing in their lunchbox empty of packaging, which is becoming quite a popular thing to do. And promoting healthy eating. Apples and fruit and banana have their own packaging.
Yeah.
Tia says her brother has a No Waste Wednesday. Great. And what school's that at, Tia, if you don't mind me asking? Is it a local one? Bitterbar Primary School. Yep. I think they had a great recycling component there a little while ago with soft plastics as well.
I think the intervention early on in primary schools is such a great way of enforcing that behaviour early on. So that, it's behaviours that, hopefully in time will see us reduce waste and be more mindful. And
normalising it, as opposed to thinking, you're a greenie, or you sit far to the left if you go for a walk and you pick up your rubbish, Yep. And it's an expectation. And it's surprising how many people still think, I'll just leave my rubbish here because I'm creating a job for somebody. Even at the shopping centres, they'll leave their tray on their table or something. They really think that they're creating a job for somebody by leaving those sorts of items behind, which is a lot of the training that we do is behaviour change, which I'm sure you're probably very familiar with, trying to tap into that that part of the brain, or put incentives in place rather than regulative things to get people to think, or do the right thing when it comes to litter and waste.
Yeah. So engage with the recycling and cool. It's literally made me even think about how I can become more environmentally sound from home, because I think often I do things in a rush and don't think about where I'm throwing things.
Well, that's the hard thing. We're so busy. We've just got this, this isolated view. We're trying to get through the day. So I can completely understand, and convenience is king. So yeah, it's a real struggle for us all sometimes. Are there any big change ideas on the way? Small changes, big results. I think you said we made our rubbish bin the smallest bin in the house. Oh, congrats. We are part of a program called Small Acts, Big Change. That's another website you can jump on and have a look. There's some items on there, whether it's home composting, donating your clothing and things to local charities, bits and pieces like that. There's some ideas on there. The big thing, I suppose, is us as a consumer. We have, the ability to purchase products that have less packaging, or, ask for products to have, there's a scheme coming out that's right to repair, which means that, say if we have an item that's broken, we have the right to have that item repaired as opposed to replaced with brand new. So that's a statewide, and I think they've even got a federal paper that they're putting together about that too, trying to make sure that those items. We go to an e-waste recycling facility, and I remember picking up a camera and it had a purchase date of, manufacture date less than 12 months, but it was at the e-waste recycling facility because it either broken or it had been superseded by some other product. So, yes, I think we need to start looking at the items that we purchase. They might be a little bit more expensive, like your coffee cup, but a bit further down the line, we're obviously going to get the longevity out of that product.
Yay, no waste on the coffee cup.
Yeah.
Beth's got the 80-20 rule.
Is that for your purchasing, Beth, or for the products that you like to support? Or the big ideas? Yep. Okay. So, okay, Tia said the best thing she did regarding consuming was to join the library. She loves reading, but she didn't want to have to go and purchase too many books and create so much waste. The amount of books I've got on reducing waste, the library is astounding. Guys, use your libraries. It's just not the uni one, that's right. We have so many facilities available at our local libraries. We can hire, borrow things. I know we have a 3D printing machine that you can use. There's all sorts of, I know the City Library's got a new machine that if you've got a VHS and you want to turn it into a DVD or a CD, that facility is for free. So, start looking into your libraries. We've actually got a seed library at our library. Most libraries do now, so you can actually get packets of seeds.
Yeah.
So jump on board to the website and have a look what's available there, and they run lots of workshops as well. So I mentioned before about composting and worm farming. Those who live in Newcastle Council area, we have a program available called Compost Revolution. So if you're looking to get a compost bin or a worm farm or a bokashi bin, those products are discounted to 75% at the moment, and it's online for Newcastle residents. So you don't have to be a ratepayer, just a resident, and you can jump on and get that discount on your product. And I know there's Newcastle City Council, and I'm not sure if Lake Macquarie do offer a similar sort of program where you can get a receipt from Bunnings and you can claim a certain amount back from council.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got some people who didn't know about the seed library. Yes, I think it's only a very recent thing. I did see it out at or is it Cessnock Council? And I know Newcastle Council's got one as well too. So jump on board and have a look at that. We do a lot of partnerships with organisations like the Men's Shed, so sort of reuse centres where we can get people to take their products in. You know, perhaps they need to get something fixed that's made from timber or electrical, and often Men's Sheds groups have people who have trade qualifications and those sorts of things, which can fix them up. I know down in Sydney they have the Bower, which is a repair cafe where people can take items to get fixed. So whether it's electrical, you know, their lamp's broken and it needs to be rewired, and those sorts of things, rather than throwing it away, they get it repaired for free or for a small fee, which is great. But also Upcycle Newcastle, jump on their website. They run lots of workshops as well. So I know that they used to have some displays at the Newcastle Uni for some of their open days, where they'd make rugs out of, you know, old denim jeans and handbags out of denim jackets and those sorts of things. So yeah, there's lots and lots going on.
I'll definitely get you to send through a few of the links. You mentioned some really, really good resources. So if we can maybe get a hold of some of those, we can make them available to the students here on campus.
Sure.
Because obviously this session is currently being recorded, and some really, really great sort of conversations and even input from everyone that's on the chat today.
Yes, thanks everybody.
So
yeah, great. So I suppose in tying up, I think, what are we up to now? 2:08. Look, I'm happy to take any questions. I'll pop my email address up so everyone can get that direct link if they need anything specific that I can answer. But yes, so I suppose my holistic view is try and reuse as much as possible. Obviously, more environmentally friendly than recycling those options. Look, we have a hole in the ground. We don't want to fill it up too quickly. But yeah, if anyone out there has any questions, I can see Beth said, any bin hints, the main ideas for, was that for your red bin, Beth? Were you looking at reducing the contents in your red bin? Both, so recycling, yep, and the red bin. So for the red bin, ideally it would be, I think, majority, around 50% of what gets placed in our red bins, usually food scraps. So that would be composting and worm farming. Again, when you're at the shops trying to purchase products that don't have that type of packaging that you know is not recyclable. So meat often comes with those polystyrene trays. That's not recyclable. So that meat tray will then obviously go into our red bin. So perhaps purchasing from a butcher or from the deli straight, as opposed to purchasing those prepackaged items, might save you a little bit of space. For the yellow recycling bin, you can squash your paper and cardboard items up. But say if you've got sort of like a wheat mix box, don't place a milk container and a jar in there, because those items will get bulk collected together. So try and keep those separate. I mentioned before, you can get an upsize to your recycling bin for $25. So that's on council's website. So most councils offer that, I think, for that minimum fee as well too. So you can actually upsize. I mean, ideally, we don't want to be creating that much more waste, but if you do have a large family or a large household unit, you might look at upsizing your recycling. So I think any sheets to avoid pests from the compost bin. So are you getting sort of rodents, or are you getting smaller items in there, Beth? Both. Okay, so for rodents, we suggest you can put some sort of wire or mesh underneath a compost bin. Yeah, they are pretty gross, that's right. For things like cockroaches and ants, if you've got a worm farm, if you stand the legs in little tubs of water, then the actual bugs can't climb up the legs to get in there. Perhaps sometimes when our food scraps break down, they have little vinegar flies at the top there. You can usually get a powder to just sort of sprinkle, I think it's a biodynamic powder to sprinkle on the top there, just to get rid of those vinegar flies, to keep your compost or your worm farms happy. And T's asked, what's the best way to keep up to date with the changes in waste management in the wider community? Any changes really? Is there an email list we can join? Council has a newsletter, which is called, sorry, I've just escaped me now. I know Lake Macquarie Council, ours is Natural Connections newsletter, and Lake Macquarie Council's is called Eco Advocate. So if you want to jump on board for either of those newsletters, there's always a lot of information about what's happening to the general environmental units across council. So they'll keep you up to date with workshops and other activities like that. There's a couple of apps floating around for Newcastle Council, which you can use to report illegal dumping, missed bins, those sorts of things. I think there's a Newcastle Now. There's a Newcastle Voice is a group that we have, which we take a lot of surveys from. So if you're interested in having input into perhaps some of the waste management strategies that are coming out of councils, that's a group to get on board with too. But unfortunately, at the moment, a lot of it is via online, so we don't get that face-to-face interaction, which I love the most. So, yes, wonderful. All right. Well, on that note, I think I might get busy sending off some links and some information sheets to you all. But thank you very much for jumping online and participating. It's great having that feedback and that talking. It's been really interesting to see your ideas, and you all seem pretty well informed, I must say. So yeah, I'm very impressed.
That's awesome. It's been really, really good just getting that sort of added information from yourself, Alicia. So really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for the input as well.
Definitely makes a big difference.
Yeah. So UNSA will make the links and also the recording available to students, I guess, in the next few days. So you'll be able to rewatch back and maybe go over some of the links that were discussed. Yeah.
Beautiful. Cool. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you. You too.
We'll see you around.
Bye.
Bye.